Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. I'm always grateful. If you haven't seen Patrick Draghi's Mindspeak session, he really was a revelation. It's such an interesting subject right now, quite fluid. Have a look at his presentation, which we separated from the Q&A section component. Both are on the front page of rich.co.ke or on Rich Wrap-Ups. I'll put up a photograph of the central bank governor and Hannah cutting a cake, and kudos to Gina for alerting us to that. The cake was in fact given to a children's home, which is in line with the governor's philosophy. Home thoughts. I've returned to David Yarrow, the photographer. This Inuit family in the far north of Baffin Island is a unit, and they behave as one. I thought that was really powerful. And then from the Paris Review, it's all one book you write anyway. At night you dream 6 dreams, but are they 6 dreams? Then this is from Julio Cortázar. These days my notion of the fantastic is closer to what we call reality. Another David Yarrow photograph. In this photograph, the surrounding water is calm enough to offer an unblemished canvas. Yesterday I had a meeting in the city centre of Nairobi. I used to be there about 9 or 10 years ago. It feels like an urban jungle, to be honest, but I was going for a meeting on the 16th floor of the ICEA building, and in the lift I took this photograph out of the lift window of Nairobi, and then I took another one, directionally quite similar, but it gives you a different flavour. That created a conversation on Twitter, and Namux tweeted me, while you were there, why don't you talk to ICEA? They grant us access to shoot Nairobi from such beautiful angles. And let me leave you with one more home thought. Shakespeare didn't know he was a beat poet. Peter Levy. Political reflections. Let me start with this photograph that caught my attention. A foot guard passes out as Queen Elizabeth II rides past during a parade. That's in 1970. FT has an article, Putin has West in crosshairs with social media offensive. 5 popular Twitter accounts known for their acerbic lampoons of Russian foreign policy have become the latest victims in an increasingly noisy information war between the Kremlin and the West. Russia, say Kremlin watchers, has begun to ramp up and hone its messaging to audiences at home and far beyond its borders as the Kremlin looks to less overt, less martial means to achieve its geostrategic objectives, ambitions, from lifting Western sanctions to sowing division in the EU and NATO. The phrase that springs to mind is "to azimut," says Ben Nimmo. Russia's information campaign is the largest, the most intense NATO has faced since the end of the Cold War. I concluded by saying, firstly, President Putin has proven highly effective at messaging the world, notwithstanding the interference. And that took me back to something I quoted in September 2012, saying one of the defining bifurcations of the future will be the conflict between information masters and information victims. The information warfare will not be couched in the rationale of geopolitics, the author suggests, but will be spawned like any Hollywood drama out of raw emotions, hatred, jealousy, and greed. Emotions rather than strategy will set the terms of the information warfare struggles. That was from an article written in the Army War Journal many years prior. I'll put up a photograph of the concert that was performed in Palmyra, and that's what I mean about getting his message across through the interference. That was a very powerful story, that message he sent across. I'll also put up a photograph of Putin just outside the Kremlin taking a walk. On the 5th of October 2015, I said Putin is a geopolitical grandmaster. And I think, you have to consider him a grandmaster in geopolitics. Of late, he's been placed under tremendous pressure by the oil warfare specialist, President Obama. The wrestling of the oil price from above $100 to below $50 a barrel was always intended to wither Russia's power and send it into a tailspin, and others, Venezuela, for example. At the time I wrote that piece, I said, let us turn to United Nations General Assembly, where Putin set out his stall, and I quote, "I cannot help asking those who have caused the situation, do you realize now what you've done?" So Putin fancies himself a flycatcher in Syria, the fly trap, and that the speed of execution confirmed that Russia is once again a geopolitical actor that will have to be considered. I called it a breathtaking rebound. I said then, a little bit tongue-in-cheek, that President Obama is now probably considering how he can wrestle the oil price to below $20 a barrel. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau raised the pride flag on Parliament Hill, that photograph. Mevlut Cavusoglu, who's accompanying the President of Turkey, Erdogan, in Kenya, posted this rather grand photograph. Erdogan has that grand look about him. The FT is asking the reasons behind Turkey leader Recep Erdogan's African tour, saying Turkey has both political and economic motives behind its push for a greater presence in Africa. The continent provides fertile ground for Mr. Erdogan to buttress his ambitions for Turkey to be a key player not just in the Middle East but around the world. Turkey has 34 embassies in sub-Saharan Africa compared with 7 in 2009. African countries are also the largest recipients of Turkish foreign aid. A total of $400 million has been committed to Somalia alone in the past 5 years. The Muslim majority nation singled out for largesse. Turkish Airlines, 50% state-owned, flew to 7 airports in sub-Saharan Africa in 2009. It now has routes to 51 destinations in 34 countries across the continent. This number of routes is more than double Emirates' African network, and on par with Ethiopian Airlines and Kenya Airways. Razia Khan, it's all about building the reputation of Istanbul as a hub for Europe and the US. Then the strategy becomes more viable. Turkish exports to sub-Saharan Africa rose from under $1.5 billion in 2006 to more than $4.1 billion in 2013, so not a bad number. There is also a local element of Turkish politics being played out in the President's African trips. A significant part of his private meetings are focused on cutting the influence of an imam named Fethullah Gulen, a former ally with whom he publicly fell out in 2013. Now, what's an interesting nuance to this whole story is Fethullah Gulen's schools are called Light Academy. And in fact, one bought the property next to my father's old house in Mombasa a while back. So we saw the school come to fruition. Extremely successful, very good results. It's very interesting. So this has become a bone of contestation because Gulen and Erdogan were allies once. Indeed, the Turkish president's growing authoritarian streak at home might cause unease amongst foreign potential partners. I said it's very ideological, and Africans won't want the baggage of the fundamentalist issues. Turkey has recalled the German ambassador over the Armenia vote. Turkish lira dropped a marginal 0.3%. The New York Times says activists thanked Germany's parliament after it declared Armenian deaths in 1915 a genocide. My friend in Kinshasa is reminding me of the Herero genocide, which was conducted by the Germans. I'm urging you make this your last. You make this trip your last trip in Davao City. Duterte said in English during a 2-hour televised briefing. It was rather fruity. I do not care No one is covering me. Do not threaten me. I said I'm ready to lose the presidency. My honor or my life. Just do not FUCK with me, he said. World food import bill to drop below $1 trillion to a 7-year low. This is indeed good news because the correlation between food prices and revolution is very, very high indeed. Year's import cost will be 27% lower, a record $1.346 trillion in 2014. However, a lot of the disadvantaged countries are suffering because of currency devaluation, making the prices higher for them, notwithstanding the overall bill in dollars is lower. Let's move on to international markets. Draghi said rates are to stay low, well beyond the QE horizon, damped down any hijinks in the euro. ECB kept all its rates on hold as expected. Let's move on to the currency markets. Euro 111.53, dollar index 95.54. Japanese yen has been strengthening of late, 108.76. Swissy 0.9905, the pound 144.36. Aussie 0.7256. A little bit of bounce since the early morning. India rupee 67.235, South Korean won 11.8412. The Real 357.86, Egyptian pound 8.8798, and the Rand 15.5716. Euro showed little reaction to the ECB decision as the ECB kept rates unchanged as expected. It came off a little bit, it got up to about 112.25, where are we now? 111.53, so it actually came off. Draghi very much let the air out of things. Have a look at the Bund US spread. It's showing you it's at the narrowest, I think, since 2007. Philip Green, who was the ex-boss of BHS, took over £400 million in dividends. Is saddened to hear the retailer is to be liquidated with the loss of 11,000 jobs. That's Jamie McGeever. Look at this chart from Hans Sader, chart of 0.7 seconds of PNR pump and dump. And he's got a lot of issues about the framework around high-frequency trading amongst other things. Very interesting man. Gold, 12.45. I think we're going to have to test 1,200 before we go anywhere else, I think. OPEC is back, stronger, Barkindo said in his first interview after winning his second stint as the group's top official. Now, as you know, I think OPEC is irrelevant, and I wrote about it in December 2014 when I said it's the US that has now emerged as the new price setter for oil markets. I said, President Obama, this is in December 2014, while getting creamed in the midterms, has been a very subtle, skilled, hard-nosed exponent of currency and now oil warfare. This plan to undercut oil was exquisitely constructed and executed. The Russian ruble has been crushed. The Russian central bank has dropped $100 billion defending the currency. Iran might have got an extension, but the new oil price normal keeps them on the ropes. And of course, Venezuela's oil income has collapsed. I called it a very 21st century shock and awe without firing a bullet. And I'll put up a photograph of Dr. Mohammed Sanusi Barkindo. OPEC kept the status quo, and that's on the basis that they've had a significant oil rally anyway. And it's bringing more harmony, I think. Cities more said one decision came out of the OPEC meeting, agreement to appoint Barkindos to succeed El Badri. The rest was PR, he's not wrong. Have a look at the OPEC production versus Brent crude price. I'll put up a 1-month chart of WTI. It looks to me like we have a double top in WTI, just above 50. Africa, Brazzaville is a magical fusion of French language and African culture, so says Fly SAA. Angola's president has appointed his daughter as head of state oil firm, Isabel. The leader fired the company's entire board and replaced it with new executives as part of a plan to restructure the business so it runs more efficiently. He said in an email statement on Thursday, Paulino Fernando de Carvalho Geronimo has been appointed CEO. It said Angola vies with Nigeria as Africa's biggest oil producer. Angola's way ahead right now in point of fact. My point is, when you have no limits, you're used to having no limits to your behavior, you make these kinds of decisions, which are poor ones. I'll put up a photograph of Isabel dos Santos. Interesting piece in Strat 4, Angola, where self-preservation is disguised as reform. Saying even as Angola's long-standing president prepares to step down, he's working furiously to eliminate any threats to his family's interests before leaving office in 2018. And talking about May 26 issued a decree that Solomon Gold will halt its activity in the oil and natural gas industry as well as other sectors of the economy. Instead, the company will focus its efforts on acting as Angola's concessionaire for oil and natural gas contracts, so she's in prime position. Pope Francis and Angola's President Jose Eduardo dos Santos are seen in this photograph taken on the 2nd of May 2014. After the strongman, what's next for Angola? Asked Global Risk Insights. Political uncertainty comes at a time when Angola is facing unprecedented economic challenges. Given this, GRI asks what's next for Angola. And on August 2015, I said the end is nigh. If you really want to know what's next for crude oil and oil producers from Caracas to Luanda, from Riyadh to Abuja. Oil-based economies are going to contract, currencies which have already collapsed are going to be routed, and Greek-style austerity will be the order of the day. The meltdown is coming. Richard Kapuscinski again, if the crowd disperses, goes home, does not reassemble, we say the revolution is over, and I was saying the revolution is only just beginning. South Africa's all share up 5.96% so far this year. Dollar rand 15.5716. No man's land. Really, it's a little bit tricky. I think a lot of things are priced into the rand now, barring sort of a Zuma nuclear option type thing if he sacked Gordon or something. Egyptian EGX 30 up 8.73% year to date. Nigeria's Buhari has cancelled a visit to the oil-producing Niger Delta, said a government source. As Nigeria dithers on Naira, foreign companies see funds trapped. NAMPAC unable to repatriate money trapped due to the shortage of FX in Nigeria. We're exploring structuring options in Nigeria, said Andre de Rita. While some companies were contemplating dollar investments into Nigeria, they would want to avoid doing so at an overvalued official exchange rate. And that's the point. Nigeria's all shares down 5.09% this year. Ghana Stock Exchange down 12.19% so far this year. Darjeeling tea has gone digital and online auctions are about to begin. The most prized black tea is poised to enter the digital age. Darjeeling trade moving online from June. India harvested 1.19 billion kilograms of leaves in 2015. Less than 1% of that was actually Darjeeling. S&P may lower Kenya's rating, warns on election spending. The negative outlook means the rating will go to B flat. Nation budgeted a deficit of 8.7% of GDP for the fiscal year through June 2016, from 7.8% a year earlier. Ratings agency said it expects the nation will attract higher interest rates when it sells a second Eurobond. They sold a 10-year Eurobond at 6.88%. It's now trading at 8.31%. There's going to be a risk premium increase, obviously. So I don't think that's a good sign, and I think they're right. I was chatting to somebody about an estimate of election spending is going to be close to $3.5 billion. If you take the presidential devolution contests, and all of them in the mix, it's a frightening prospect, isn't it? Kenya shilling 100.89, the Teflon shilling. And a lot of that's to do with the central bank government's bona fides. Nairobi all shares at lows not seen since the 1st of March. It's down 1.5% this year. I spoke with Victor of Power FM 987 yesterday, and he very kindly published a sand cloud. I was talking about the Kenyan and East African markets. Have a listen if you're interested. The Nairobi NSE 20 is down 5.97% this year. It closed for the first time below 3,800 since the 1st of February. I like this photograph. Kabangu, watchman by night, hip-hop heads by day. The story of four gentlemen in the heart of Kariobangi. NSE stakeholders have approved a bonus shares issuance, raising their paid-up capital to 1 billion shillings. That's all about getting the nod from the CMA to start the derivatives market. So plenty of developments on that score. Once again, thank you for stopping by. Wish you a tremendous weekend and speak to you from Monday.